Okay, super. So what we'll do is we will look at the meaning of, or rather not the meaning, the let us look at the background of where Purusha Suktam comes from and what is the context of Purusha Sukta. This is it's a Vedic chant. It is very regularly chanted, particularly in homas. Homamlam mandrache, any form of homa that you do, Rudram is chanted, Namakam is chanted, and Purusha Suktam is chanted. And Purusha Suktam is any form of yajna, one of the most important chants. And then, of course, Taittiriya Upanishad is also chanted, the Shikshavalli. But Purusha Suktam is foremost in terms of performing, whenever you're performing a yajna. At the start, they will chant this usually. And you will see a lot of references to yajna. Yajnena, yajnena, yajamanta. There is a verse that comes. Yajnena.
Yajnena yajnamaya janta devaha.
Yajnamaya janta devaha. Yajnena yajnamaya janta devaha. Yeah, which verse is this? Hmm. 18th verse. Yajnene yajnamaya janta devaha. Tani dharmani prathamanyasana. Prathamanyasana. Yajnena yajnamaya janta devaha. So, there are many references to yajna made in this Purusha Suktam. And why is this important is, and we've spoken about sacrifice, yajna as a means of sacrifice, as a means of doing an act of offering. You're offering something. Now, what you're offering, there are different things we can offer. Right? Even in the Bhagavad Gita, there are references made to yajna. Even Brahmarpanam is a yajna. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavihi, Brahmagno, Brahmanaham. So there are references to such kinds of sacrifices. Now, Purusha Suktam is one of the oldest Suktams because it appears in the Rig Veda. And so, if we look at the Vedic literature itself, largely it was classified into three: Rig, Yajus, Sama. Rig, Yajus, Sama. The fourth one is Atharvana Veda, but because it has a lot of references from Rig, Yajus, Sama in the Atharvana Veda. But main Vedas nu paathalla, these are three: Rig, Yajus, Sama, and Chulva. And there is also a reference to Om with the Pranava. They say Veda is Pranava Swarupa. Pranava Swarupa is Omkara Swarupa. So Om has three syllables: Akara, Ukara, Makara. So the three the three are referred to as or correspond to Rig, Akara, Yajus, Ukara, Saman, Makara. Right? So Rig, Yajus, Sama, Omkara. And Atharvana Veda in many ways is also an Upasana Veda. So there is a lot of Upasana Marga that is referred in the Atharvana Veda. And many practices that are there. So that is Upasana. But in terms of the Vedic content, in terms of the way the Rig Veda is in the Padya form, Yajus is in the Gadya form, and Saman is also in Saman is in the musical form. So Rig Veda is more in poetry form. Yajur Veda is in prose form, and Saman is in musical form. Sangeeta, right? The Sangeeta is come from Sama Veda is what we know, right? That's what we've learned. Now, these are the three Vedas, and Purusha Suktam appears in all of them. And one of the greatest things about, or the things that we know of Purusha Suktam, or the claim it has, is that it occurs in almost in the same format in all the three Vedas. If you look at Sri Suktam, it's not the same. There are many differences. You'll find many differences between Rig and Yajur, Sri Suktam. Purusha Suktam appears pretty much in the same way. There may be little minor differences, konja paata bheda irukum, but then largely it appears almost exactly similar across all the Vedas. And Vedic literature, if you look at now, when we look at shlokas, when we look at itihasas, Ramayanam, Mahabharatam, or the shlokas by Adi Shankara, by all the great masters and all, they are smriti. They are written or composed by somebody. Vedas are not smriti. It is not composed by a particular individual. They are called as shruti because the rishis heard it and they revealed it. Right? And this kind of um, um, delivery of the Vedas occurred as when they say as a revelation. See, Smriti is also a revelation. When Adi Shankara was looking at Kashi Vishwanath, Vishwanath Ashtakam came, that is also a revelation. It came as a revelation. What is the difference between that and this one? Here there are, and also Vedic literature or the Vedic mantras that came out, there are some rishi from whom it came. It came through some rishi. Correct. So it is called Apaurushaya because you cannot attribute it to a particular person. Like you can attribute Annapurna Ashtakam to Adi Shankara, Shakti Mahimna to, say, Durvasa, right? Muka Panchashati to Muka Rishi. Like that, you can't associate some, like for example, Ganapati Atharva Shirsha, you can associate to Ganaka Rishi. But most of the works, the Vedic works that comes, you cannot collectively, you cannot associate it to an individual. And we say Apaurushaya, it is not associated to a particular individual. It is just revelations that came to many, many rishis over different times, over a period of time. Right? And then they didn't necessarily put a mudra or a name or a stamp of who created, who wrote, who composed, etc. So that wasn't there. Because it was in their states of exploration, it just came as a revelation. The Vedas just came as a revelation in their states of internal exploration. And hence it cannot be associated to an individual. So it is like saying, and we discussed about this, it's like saying biology. Biology is a subject, you cannot say who is the author of biology. There's nobody, there's no author of biology. There may be an author or a scientist who particularly described, say for example, genetics. Somebody who'd explored that particular area or that particular specific line or faculty. There may be somebody who developed that particular line in little more detail. But biology as a whole, you can't say that there is an author. So in the same way, Vedas as a whole, there is no real author in terms of saying you can't attribute it to an individual that way. And also, this was a time when, and so because we're saying Vedas, these Vedic revelations happened over many, many, many centuries. It could have gone back all the way to a few thousands of years, back to a few hundreds of years. Right? Some Upanishads are made references to maybe about 200 BC. 200 BC is not too far, right? Just as compared to the age of the original Vedic literature, like Rig Vedas, you'd say that is maybe 3,000, 4,000 years old. And some of the Upanishads, 200 AD also. There's something, some references are made to some Upanishads in 200 AD, which is just about 1800 years ago. So there is a whole range of time when these things got revealed to various rishis. And how do you differentiate a shloka or a stuti, which is smriti or itihasa, for example, or Puranas, to a Veda, Vedic literature or Vedic revelation is by means of the sound. So if you listen to Purusha Suktam, Sahasrashirsha Purushaha Sahasrakshas Sahasrapat Sabhumim Vishvato Vritva Atyatishthad Dashangulam Purusha Evedagum Sarvam. இது மாதிரி வருதுல்ல. So this is the way it moves. It goes up and down. So what you have is the line in which, so there are three or actually four reference points in the Vedic chanting. One is called the Udata. Udata is the straight line in which you keep chanting, which is how most of our shlokas are chanted. Right? If you take Lalita Sahasranam, Shri Mata, Shri Maharagni, Shri Mat Simhasaneshwari, Ure Madripo. So that central line, the median line, you can say Udata. Then there is a line that goes below, that's called Anudata. Dashangulam, Dashangulam. The ungulam, there it will go down and come up. So that is called an Anudata. Then there is a line that will go up from the Udata. Purusha Evedugum Sarvam. அதுக்கு முன்னாடி Shangulam Atyadishta. So there will be Sahasrashirsha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasra Sahasrapat Sahasrapat Sahasra. So that sound is called Swarita. So Udata, Anudata, Swarita. Swarita is above the Udata. A little rise in the intonation. Then there is a Dirgha Swarita. Sarvam Yad Bhutai Yadcha Bhavyam. There are two sounds, two Swaritas, that's called Dirgha Swarita. So Udata, Anudata, Swarita, Dirgha Swarita. So these are four sound points. And you see all the Vedic literature will follow these 4 points. And there are some sounds called Pluta, which doesn't usually appear, very rarely, you will find it in Taittiriya Upanishad in some places. They would have written it as 3. In some places, when at the matra, they will write it as 3. That 3 means you'll have to make 3 matras sound. The extension is for 3 matras. So that's called a Pluta. But that is very rare. You'll find it in very rare places. Right? So these are Pluta. 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 So these are generally in ways in which some of these sounds have been named, labeled. But when the revelation happened to the Rishi, it didn't come to him like, oh, now this is a Swarita, oh, now this is a Dirgha Swarita. It just came as sounds. Later they labeled it and structured it, right? Which is what a lot of work that Vedavyasa did. Compiled, classified, coordinated the Vedic verses that were there. So, when we look at any Vedic text, and we did Ganapati Atharva Shirsha before, when you look at a Vedic text, the importance is to recognize that there is a lot of invocatory aspects to the Vedic text. Why? Is because the Rishi who's got this revelation is now actually experiencing, like how Mahakavi Kalidasa in Shamala Dandakam, he's experiencing the divine in some form, And as he's experiencing the divine, there is also a praise of the divine that's coming out. So it will be both descriptive of whatever he's experiencing, and it will also be like a stuti. In a way, it will also be a praise, right? And it will also have some Vedanta, because there this individual is experiencing something extremely um, in a very transcendental state of his mind, which means in a very, very subtle frame of his mind, he is experiencing a very it's a very refined experience. It's not a physical experience. He's having a very refined experience, which for him, what he's experiencing, he is when you're experiencing something, remember this, you will always feel one with the experience when you're experiencing it. Later, when you think about it, you will probably say that I experienced this. But while you're experiencing, you and the experience are one. Correct? You get anger. When you're getting angry, you don't look at it and say, I have anger. You just feel angry. You were feeling one with anger at that time. So you just feel like letting that anger out, and you will become an embodiment of anger. You become an embodiment of anger. When we feel irritated, you become irritation. We embody that experience. There is no difference between me and that experience there. Later we can think, oh, I became angry. I had anger. I shouldn't have been angry, and so on and so forth. We do that analysis subsequently. While the experience is happening, you are feeling one with that experience, and which is what is happening to the rishis who are revealing this Vedas. They're feeling one. They're feeling one with the experience that they're having, and it is flowing out in terms of praise, in description, and also in terms of the truth that they are experiencing at that time, the truth of being one. Purusha evedagum sarvam is experiencing this Purusha everywhere. Like we saw the Vishwarupa Darshanam at Kurukshetra, and also yesterday in Shamala Dandakam while we closed. Purusha evedagum sarvam yad bhutam yad chabhavyam. In the past, in the future, in the present, everywhere I see him. I'm experiencing him. So Vedas, that is how you will see in all the Vedic literature. You will notice this. There is some kind of a praise, because understand this. These rishis who revealed the Vedas were you can call them as spiritual scientists. They were not sages, monks, sannyasis, kadayad. They were rishis who were spiritual scientists, which were like a scientist. They would go and explore. The whole job that they've taken up is to go and explore all that they can. The material world that is perceived, and the inner world that they can't perceive in the same way. So from the inside, they try to explore, because they realize at some point this is Pindanda and that is Brahmanda. That Brahmanda can be experienced through this Pindanda. So if I explore this Pindanda, I can understand the Brahmanda. So this understanding that come to intuitively. And this exploration, when they do, they are able to create or have these revelations, which is not just for them. Scientist never does. For example, if a scientist came out, the mathematician Ramanuja had the revelation of mantra, the mathematical formulae. There is very little use of that for him, but there is use for humanity. Today, scientists are using that to measure the distance between Mercury and the sun. And they figured out that some of this mathematical formula is applicable. So the scientists, when they do this, because scientists are purely interested in knowledge, understanding. gaining the understanding of whatever that is there, be it the world outside or be it the world inside, or this or that. So when the rishis have this revelation, remember that will also have a lot of poetry like praising and all of that in a yajna form, so that people who later make use of this for their, either for your kamya purti or jnanam, whether you want jnanam or karma, in both, or kama, whether for your kama or for your jnanam, in both these cases you can use this. So this is where the revelations came out. How one uses it later is for an individual to use it. The same Purusha Suktam can be used as a yajna for fulfillment of your desires, for a good well-being, for a good family, for a good household, everything. But at the same time, the same Purusha Suktam can be used to get the understanding of what is Brahman, what is that Purusha, how do I attain to that Purusha. So that Upanishadic understanding is also there. Mama, you raised your hand.
ஸோ இப்போ அந்த ரிஷிகள் அந்த அபௌருஷ அந்த ஹியரிங் they heard those verses and they joined their own verses also அப்படின்னு சொல்லிடலாம். Like புருஷ
ஏவேதகும் சர்வம்.
அது அவர் ஆட் பண்ணிருப்பாருன்றீங்களா? அப்பார்ட் ஃப்ரம் ஹியரிங், லைக் they say it's they hear some of the verses and they add. Yeah,
correct. So see, the thing is, where the mind comes into play is interesting, because they may not have, so the thing of composition is that you have to sit, you process, think, and then you compose. Here what would have happened, these words would have come, which is why you say gum, eveda gum sarvam. Gum has no meaning, but still gum remains there. In the verse it is evam, purusha evam sarvam. But the gum is a Vedic sound, because just because this rishi heard the gum, he is written or he is transmitted as gum. So whatever sound he received, he transmitted it. Now, of course, it comes through the vocal faculty of the human being. The rishi is a human being. It comes through his vocal faculty, and it comes through his mind. Right? So it comes out in a form which is relevant. It doesn't come out in some random sounds. There is a different science, okay, where just pure sounds, Vedic mantras are actually sounds. You take Trayambakam or the Gayatri mantra, all of these are sounds only. But then it's also carries the form of the language that we are familiar with. Because at that time, the rishis, obviously they spoke this language, Deva Bhasha, Sanskritam. They may have not spoken it in the way it has been constructed by Panini now. The way Panini has structured it, they may have not used, because when Panini structured this Bhasha and he called it Sanskritam, at that time this Bhasha existed. Sage Panini came along and he saw this Bhasha is existing, everybody is speaking, he himself was speaking it, but there is no structured way of communicating, teaching, transmitting, and putting it into a grammatical structure. So he took upon the work to put it into a grammatical structure. So this grammatical structure that we have today, in fact, even in the 10 tenses, the lakaras that we call, yesterday you were mentioning a vidhilinga lakara. Similarly, there is another lakara or a tense in Sanskritam, which is What is that, ma kalpaka? Which is used largely in Vedic.
லிட் நினைக்கிறேன் வேதே லிட் அப்படின்னு சொன்னாங்க
Huh?
லிட்
Lit lakara. Lit lakara is usually used in Vedic literature. Like for example, jagama cha yathagatam. Jagama is in
அகச்சத்
Aditya Hridayam, we have that, right? Tato Parishrantam. So towards the end, Jagama cha yathagatam, Jagama yathagatam. From where he came, he goes back. Jagama gachati, but goes back. The word Jagama is a Sanskrit, a Vedic way of saying gachat or agachat, is it? No, Jagama cha yathagatam. So from where he came,
பிரத்யகச்சத்
Gachat madri varam. So Gachat is the word that we are familiar in the Panini Sanskritam. But Jagama is a Vedic way of using the same word. So there's a lit lakara. There is one lakara where there is this, some of the Vedic words, Janasaha. Valmiki Ramayanathla or Janasaha nu varum. Janasaha means Janaha. It's the plural of Janaha. Janaha, the man or a person. Janaha or people, but that plural form in Vedic terms or in certain places, it will be referred to as Janasaha. So we'll wonder what is this Janasaha. There is a little akara, Bahuvachanam. So some of these forms are Vedic in nature, some words. So what Panini has done, he's created a structure based on 95% of the way the language is structured or is spoken. And then he has found some of these 5-10% which doesn't fit in, and he's put it somewhere here. Ityadi, miscellaneous, etc. So the point I'm coming to is, at that time, before Panini structured this, the language was being spoken. See, whenever you, so today, if we have a revelation, can we not have a revelation like the rishis did? Can we not? அவள அவ்வளோ இதுவா எங்களால முடியவே முடியாதா இன்னைக்கு அப்படிங்கிறது ஒரு கேள்வி வரும், right? Can we not have revelations like the rishis did? Of course you can. But the language, it will come out for you, it may not come out in Sanskritam because you're not proficient in Sanskritam. You're not proficient in that language. And the language has its own beauty, it has its own potency. The sound in the language has its own potency because the way the language has been somehow configured, the sounds that are used in that language is pretty much complete. But if you look at other languages, for example, you take Urdu. Some of the words in Urdu, they don't occur in Sanskritam. They'll say darwaza. Darwaza, the z does not appear in Sanskritam. There is no z. Ademari Khan, if I say Khan, right? So you use a different vocal cord. That sound may not exist in Sanskritam. But that's all right. From Sanskritam standpoint, the sounds that are configured in that language are complete to express whatever sounds needs to be expressed, and it pretty much uses all the faculties of the vocal cord, starting from the guttural to the labial to the dental. Everything it uses, the whole works. Some of these sounds may not be there, but that's all right because everything else can be reproduced. And so what happened is, when these sounds came, para pashyanti madhyama vaikhari, just the sound came down from para to pashyanti. As rishis saw these sounds, they saw it in the language they knew. See, that is important to know, right? They were able to perceive it in the language they knew. And what was that language? This Deva Bhasha, this language they knew. So it came out in that form. So if we say, did they apply their mind for these words to come out? They wouldn't have consciously applied their mind, but then when the expression comes out in the way they know it is. See, that is where Om, if you take Pranava, they say you cannot chant Pranava. Actually, Vedathila Omkara sollave kudadumba. It is Rahasya, Gupta. Om should not be chanted. You should always make a reference to it and say Pranava mantra.
Sannyasis only can chant it. Yeah.
Only sannyasi shulu, ama. And that is why you call it as Pranava mantra. Why? Because you cannot chant it in the right way. You will never be able to make justice to the sound of Om with your vocal system. And the sound is to be heard from inside. And you will never be able to accurately reproduce Omkara or Pranava. But that is the basis, the Adhara of the whole Vedas. See, you look at this predicament, right? The Adhara of the Vedas is Pranava. Pranavatiye solla mudiyadu, solla kudadu. What about the rest of it? It's coming out of Pranava. All the other sounds are coming out of Pranava. So, in that sense, these are all the closest resembling sounds of what the rishis heard. This is the closest resemblance of the sounds that they heard. And which is why we are able to also look at the word meaning. Although we say Trayambakam Jamahe, either without knowing the meaning, I can chant the whole, or Namakam, if you take, I can chant the whole Namakam without knowing the meaning, it will still have the same effect. Because when it was revealed, it has that potency of the Rishi through whom it got revealed for Lokakshema. It got revealed. When it got revealed, it came out in the words that he was familiar with, the Rishi was familiar with. Which is why we are able to look at the word and look at the meaning. Trayambakam, na moonu kangal, ipdi nama paakarom. Veru sound irundadana, how can you make meaning out of sound? Right? Ipo ka ku appadinu edho pesinoonu vechukongale. You can't make any meaning out of it. The word doesn't have meaning. But here the word is Trayambakam Yajamahe. It's clearly in Sanskritam there is meaning to Trayambakam. Then Yajamahe, there is meaning to those words. And then we also say these are only sounds. So that is what we need to understand. Yes, these are essentially sounds, but it has come out in the words. Correct. Kalpaka is writing. Maheshwara Sutrani also came out in Maheshwara's Damaru. Correct. So Maheshwara Sutrani, if you see, how does it go, Ma?
First one. I
undrilrik, Hayavarat lang, Nyamangananam, Jabai, Gadadash, Jabagadadash. This is the sound. 14 sutras.
Aksharame, Sanskrit alphabet.
All the Sanskritam aksharas are there.
They repeat this. They say this.
Yeah. Correct. I undrilrik, e ong, I ouch, Hayavarat lang, Yamangananam, Jaban, Jabai, Gadadash, Jabagadadash.
அவனே அவர்கிட்ட போது சொல்லுவா வேத உபதேசம் சொல்லி.
So there are 14 sutras called Maheshwara Sutra, and they don't have any meaning. These are literally absolutely no meaning. Because these are sounds that came from the Damaru of Shiva. Maheshwara Sutrani. Now, but the verses that we listen to or chant are not like this. They are not just meaningless sounds. They are meaningful sounds. So this is the point here. The point is, yes, they are essentially sounds. The Vedic revelations are sounds. But at the same time, the sounds have come out in a way that is in the language that the rishis knew. experience that they had came out in the language the rishis knew, which is why we are able to now make sense out of it also. Okay, so same thing with Purusha Suktam. When we'll start to look at the meaning of Purusha Suktam word by word, understand that those words also have meaning because it has come out in the form Purusha. Purushaha. Purushaha is a Sanskritam word. It is not like Jabagadadash. Jabagadadash doesn't have a meaning. It is just pure sound. But Purushaha, there is a meaning to it. Right? So in this way, when we look at the word, there will be meaning. We can derive the meaning, and which is why this meaning is important now. See, if you just chant it as a sukta or a Vedic chant, it will have its impact on your well-being. It will certainly have impact on your well-being. But if we need to dive deep and make it a part of your nididhyasana, part of your mananam, where you're wanting to process, if you want to make it as a part of your Vedanta sadhana, then it is important to know the meaning. Then it is important to know the meaning. Otherwise, Purusha Suktam, you can every day 10 times, you can chant for the next 100 years, you will get the benefit of it. Whatever benefit needs to come through, just because of the sound, to bring your mind to a calm, it will do manashuddhi, it will do all that. Bring your mind to a calm, it will possibly enrich your environment, it will probably make your life a little better. All of those things will happen. But if you want to touch the truth, touch the essence of what it is saying, then we need to go through the words to get to the meaning and understand the meaning. So as a Vedanta sadhana, you need to look at the meaning. We cannot stop ourselves at sound. We can't say, oh, anyways, it's a Vedic mantra. Sound is important. Let me just keep chanting the sound. Then you will just be restricted, or you will just be at a place where you will get well-being. Truth may not reveal itself to you because it requires another level of depth, another level of nididhyasanam that needs to be done, a depth of exploration that needs to be done for truth to reveal. And that is hidden in these mantras, in all, not just Vedic mantras. It's also hidden in what Saundarya Lahari has, or Shivananda Lahari has, or all of these works. We did Mahakavi Kalidasa's Shyamala Dandakam. The truth is all in all of this. It's hidden in all of this. Vedic mantras, the added advantages of the sound. So it cleanses you first. So what happens is, in Vedic mantras, when you chant, you start by chanting the Purusha Suktam, like how Venkateshwara Suprabhadam we used to chant every Saturday morning. We'll chant. It invigorates us in a certain way, right? Some of these chants, although they are smriti, they are no less than a Vedic chant's impact. Correct? Venkateshwara Suprabhatam gives you the amount of invigoration in the morning, and it energizes and cleanses your environment. How is it any less than a Vedic chant? Vedic chant does the same thing. Some chants, even though it is smriti, even though it is composed by some saint, it somehow has come to a level of giving you a similar effect. But Vedic chants, intrinsically by the nature of the sound, the structure of the sound and the formation of the sound, they do this. So just by playing Purusha Suktam in the house, tape recorder ninga play panna kuda, it has the ability to cleanse the environment because it is sound. Like just playing Omkara. You can just play Om in your house and you go away. Try this experiment. Vacation la porel or maasam India, Dubai la suda irukku, if you play Omkara in the house and go. When you come back, you will experience there is a living presence in the house. You will experience this. It will not feel like you left the house for a month and you've gone somewhere and it's tirumba varcha ayyo eppadi irukumo. Play Om and go, and you will see this difference. I'm telling this from personal experience. We go out of the house, play some chants in the house, put it on 24/7. Put it on some kind of a loop, let it keep playing. Put it on charge, let it keep playing. And when you come back, when you open
அந்த கிரியில ஒரு மந்த்ரா டப்பா கிடைக்குமே, அதை வச்சு வாங்கி வச்சுட்டு பழப்பா.
We also have that dabba.
True. So those dabbas are nice. You can put that dabba, turn on the mantra chant and go. When you come back, you will notice some kind of a palpable living presence there. And what is that living presence? Is that of this divine energy, that refined energy that is there. So the point is, Purusha Suktam or any Vedic mantras, some of these Vedic mantras are more potent than others. Why Purusha Suktam is it's got so much popularity is also because there are two other Upanishads that are written on this. Subala Upanishad and Mudgala Upanishad. There are two other rishis who have written an Upanishad on the Purusha Suktam, describing the Purusha Suktam. So, see, ஒரு விஷயத்தை பத்தி 4 பேர் சொன்னானா, it gains a certain popularity and also importance. So there are two other rishis who have written the greatness of Purusha Sukta. So Purusha Suktam that way is not just popular, but it has a potency, because here is also another important thing to notice about sounds. If there are 1 million people resonating with a certain sound over a period of many years, that sound will reverberate in the environment. And this is very true. This is of Rudram, people chant in Yajna and Homa and all that, Namakam, right? You will see, if you happen to sit in a goshti that is chanting Namakam or Rudram, you will automatically just blend in a very natural way. Even though you don't know, even if you don't know it, you will just blend into it in a natural way. You'll just feel, you'll not feel alien to those sounds. Why? Is because Namakam and Chamakam or Rudram particular has been chanted 1,000,000 times around this globe by so many different people for so many years. People do this Ekadasha Rudram, Ati Maharudram, Ati Rudram and all of that. It has been chanted so that the sound vibrations are existing in this environment. Similarly, Purusha Suktam. Whenever there is a yajna, there is Purusha Suktam that is chanted. And so many people around the globe of this tradition, wherever they are, they chant. So by means of just chanting, people around are chanting. This is said about Rudram. When you chant Rudram, at least 5 kilometers radius, the effect of that Rudram will be there. The sound will be there. So imagine you're sitting as a goshti and you're chanting. There's at least a 5-kilometer radius that gets covered with the sound and vibration. And it will get deposited in the ether. Akashic element no cholron liya, the Akasha. It will get deposited. And so in the similar way, Purusha Suktam also gained a lot of prominence because so many people have chanted. And then when you start chanting it, there is an association there is an intuitive association that gets developed because so many people have chanted it. So this is how it gains prominence, right? When you keep doing it repeatedly, also it gains a certain prominence. Also because several people have spoken highly about it, gains prominence. Also because intrinsically, because the way the sound is structured and the meaning that is there in Purusha Suktam, it has gained prominence. So by many ways, Purusha Suktam has attained to a certain level of prominence within the Vedic literature in terms of a sukta, in terms of the way, in terms of a chant. So this is kind of an outline or introduction. We will start looking at the meanings of the verses each week. We'll keep doing that. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः तच्छंयोरावृणीमहे गातुं यज्ञपतये दैवी स्वस्तिरस्तु नः स्वस्तिर्मानुषेभ्यः ऊर्ध्वं जिगातु भेषजं शन्नो अस्तु द्विपदे शं चतुष्पदे ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि सदाशिवायेति समर्पयामि जगदम्बिकायै इति समर्पयामि सद्गुरुनाथायेति समर्पयामि हरि ओं तत्सद्गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओं